Thursday here at the watch party. I'm JR. We're doing our thing. My phone is buzzing, but that's okay. I'm here a couple minutes early because I had a couple minutes, and so sometimes when I have a couple minutes, I like to chat with you guys. Am I in the right spot? You're not supposed to block, you know, the whole name of the show and everything. Welcome to the stream again, you guys. Am I zoomed in too much? See, these are the little things that are bugging me. Now the whole time I have to lean down so that my head isn't sticking out of the shot like this. Isn't that ridiculous? Anyways, that's not why I started early. I started early because I have a couple things to say, some follow-ups here because tomorrow is Friday, as you guys all know. If you guys are the regulars here at the watch party, we party on a Friday, with adult beverages to lead us into the weekend. Could be any kind of adult beverage. You're an adult, maybe you drink something. Maybe you just have a water. Maybe you have a grapefruit. But I've been weaning myself a little bit off of energy drinks. Considering I don't drink them that much anyway, I need something new. And I'm seeing a couple comments from folks. No, this isn't the show yet, you guys. This is the stream. I get to talk to you guys just a little bit. I keep getting teas as a replacement for my Nas energy drinks. Um, I don't know, man. Tea falls in the same category as soup for me. It reminds me of being sick, therefore I don't want to touch the stuff. All I can think about is having a stuffed nose, a headache, and barely being able to breathe with a scratchy throat when I have tea. So I can't do it, bro. I'll try. I did see the suggestion of Bigelow's Constant Comment. I already see it. I looked it up. Oh, pretty cheap. I didn't know. I thought it was gonna be something fancy. It's pretty normal tea. Maybe I'll try it and I'll give you guys updates. But other than that, there was one. And I'll take more suggestions. By the way, you guys. No, we haven't started yet, so don't worry. I'm gonna ramble for a couple minutes because I like to do that too. Um, I wanted to let you guys know some things that'll be popping up on the channel. Start maybe today, tomorrow, and into the weekend. I mentioned last week we did that. I posted that fundraiser from a Miss Crystal because I want to get more like the community aspect of the things that people maybe want to take care of or each other in the era of Donald Trump and the siphoning of funds and resources from the American people. So on Monday, I did this. It wasn't really an interview, but I guess you could call it that. But I was talking to a state Senate candidate in Louisiana, and we had a broad discussion about many things from ICE raids and the protections that you could have from that. He's also an attorney. He's done some defense work. He's done a lot of things. It's all in the interview. Um, but I'm going to be posting some of those clips from that discussion that I had with him. His name is Ken Barnes, and he's running now for a state Senate seat in Louisiana. And he's going through many of the things, specifically some of the things going on in New Orleans with the funding that happens with that city, from the protections of people there, from the incarceration problems, to some of the work that he's done in criminal defense, to talk about many of the things that are going on in our country. And I just like to have these types of conversations in more of a discussion form rather than a, so you're running for office. Let me know, tell me your platform. And then we go through the normal boring back and forths. I think conversations are more interesting, will get you more of an insight into who folks are. And I know everyone isn't voting for this particular upcoming, it's a special election on the beginning of February down in Louisiana, but it's good to know who's maybe some of the people are that could be shaping our political future coming from the state level. It's not always about presidential elections or even the midterms that are upcoming that Donald Trump is trying to cancel. It's a lot of times it's about who the people are who are creating laws and situations and carrying out agendas locally. So many people in different states and areas and cities experience different parts of America just simply because of their leaders that are there. And many times we don't pay attention to who it is that's controlling people's lives from a very direct level. Maybe they're kissing Donald Trump's ass and they're miniature Donald Trumps, and we just never hear about them. It happens a lot. So, anyways, again, his name is Ken Barnes. Those clips will be up. Check out the shorts section of the page as well. Some of the moments that we started with will be there, but some of the longer, 5, 6 minute discussions that we had will also be up. So, yeah, maybe I'll do that more. There was also another candidate up in New York that reached out to me. I'm not sure. We'll see how many of those we can do. I want to do different things on the channel since I pretty much get to decide whatever else that happens here. Isn't that fun? It's a good way to go about things, I think. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. It's the top of the hour. Maybe you guys have rolled in. In case you came in late, you're not late. I was just chatting it up with a couple of folks. Darlene McClure asks if I've tried Lipton sweet iced tea. I feel like I have. It's pretty, it's one of the major brands, right? I must have at some point. It's like I've had Arizona iced tea and all those I don't know what the differences may be. It's like coffee. They all taste the same to me. I really don't know the difference. Maybe I need to develop my palate further. Okay, let's get going. I was going to say something else about the drinks, but not at this particular moment. Okay, let's go ahead and get started because there's madness happening as usual. So if you guys just jumped in, don't forget, if you enjoy what we're doing, like, subscribe, share this stream. Should be all good and fun. In fact, let me do it off the top. I usually stop in the middle to do this. Let's all like the stream together. Let's all be on the same page as we jump straight into what it is that we know has been happening on the streets and in detention centers in America. But do we really know? And how much are we paying attention to it in order to do something about it? Here's some disgusting details from PBS about what's going on in our detention centers in the United States of America.
Food contaminated with worms and mold, limited access to clean drinking water, inadequate medical care. These are a few of the allegations made by migrant families in recent court documents about their children's conditions while in ICE custody. As part of this administration's crackdown on immigration, President Trump has restored the practice of family detention, with more than 1,700 children in custody since family detention centers reopened this past spring. What were the most striking examples you witnessed that illustrate those failures?
Well, there are really profound problems with basic needs like food and water. So we have seen and heard a lot of things about children not getting child-friendly food, not being able to eat what's offered. As you mentioned, people reported vegetables that were moldy or had worms in them. People have gotten sick following meals. And there's really not food that's appropriate for small children.
The United States of America has always run our prison systems with a punitive approach, in fact, almost torturous at times. So, of course, in these detention centers where they've got family detentions and they've got children there, they figure, why do anything different? We hate these people. These are the folks that we've considered subhuman and apparently have told enough people in this country that we're supposed to, torture once they're in these facilities, and many times, as we've seen by the numbers, unlawfully. So the report from PBS points out the mold that's on vegetables, the disgusting nature of the things that they serve them, inadequate water, things like that, because they just don't care. As a matter of fact, they probably get, their rocks off from doing stuff like this and watching people suffer. So more from that guest that was speaking on PBS about the suffering of these children, these, innocent children.
There are some basic requirements for detaining children, and those are based on the settlement when it was created in the 90s. And so children have a right to safe and sanitary conditions, and they have a right to be treated with a particular attention to their unique vulnerabilities as minors. That's the Flores Settlement Agreement. There are, of course, other requirements and constitutional requirements in terms of detaining anybody, including children. But Flores sets a very basic floor on the conditions.
And how do the current conditions compare with previous administrations? Is this a long-standing problem, or is this specific to the Trump administration?
Family detention was not being used for many years before it began again in April. And so in previous iterations, there were very similar conditions issues. And one of the biggest problems is that in 1997, the standards were what the consensus was around child welfare at that time. And now we understand and know so much more. And we know that the detention of children of any kind is really harmful. And so what we see is that as kids are in these prolonged restrictive settings, they really begin to deteriorate. They have regressions in behavior. One mother explained that her previously happy toddler was starting to hit her and hit himself in the face because he was so distraught over the conditions in which they were living. We've just seen otherwise really well-adjusted kids really devolve into concerning, just constant sadness, nightmares, crying every night. One teenage boy described to me, a big kid, he was maybe 16 or 17, that he cries every night when he goes to sleep in the detention center. One regular childhood illnesses become very dangerous in detention. So one child had an earache that turned into such a severe infection that she experienced hearing loss, and she really wasn't treated for a long period of time. And then when she finally was treated, the antibiotics they gave her were extremely strong and caused her a lot of distress.
It's like they don't care. And for those who don't know that are part of running this whole system, that's even better. They can write off and say, "I didn't know any difference." So they get these prison contracts, as we've seen. Whichever groups paid off Tom Homan with that $50,000 bag of cash with the dollar sign on the sign that they've completely covered up. They've got control now over how they treat these folks that we never hear from. Many times it disappeared from the rest of their families before deportations happen, but they get to torture them for a little while in their detention centers beforehand, just just to make sure they get their licks into the people that they absolutely hate. So we've got a humanitarian crisis in America. And I kept hearing about how there's not going to be gulags, there's not going to be Gestapo in the street, and we're not going to be torturing and, yeah, killing people. So it's come down to children as well. Straightforward. We know how they operate. Which one of these kids were part of the violent gang members, drug dealing rapists that are breaking in your kid's room in the middle of the night? I wonder when somebody's going to ask these questions, because we keep seeing the tactics that they're taking in the streets and now hearing about the things that they're doing in these detention centers, which we also heard about as well too from the very beginning. Remember Alcatraz and how they were keeping Democratic representatives and officials out of these areas from down in San Diego. They were blocking people out from getting their normal oversight over the things that they're doing with our taxpayer dollars to torture children. So, I mean, if you have a pedophile in the White House like we do, it's pretty straightforward that he's going to be happy with his ICE agents going around the streets and abducting children, even at school.
As of today, 4 of our students, our children, have been detained by ICE.
The district says 4 children in Columbia Heights have been detained by ICE. Just yesterday, they say 2 children were detained by ICE, including a 17-year-old on his way to school, taken from his car and taken away. Now, then in the afternoon, a 5-year-old child, Liam Ramos, was taken with his father while on the driveway after just arriving home from his preschool classroom. School officials say the child was used as bait. They say agents made little Liam knock on the door to ask to be let in order to see if anyone else was home.
Why detain a 5-year-old? You can't tell me that this child is going to be classified as a violent criminal. 2 weeks ago, a 10-year-old student, 4th grader, was taken by ICE agents on her way to elementary school with her mother. During the arrest, the child called her father on the phone to tell him that ICE agents were bringing her to school. The father immediately came to the school to find that both his daughter and wife had been taken.
We've got these guys hanging out at schools, like, pervs, scoping out children, stopping them at bus stops, snatching their parents out of cars as they're taking them to also school. So what do you think, especially from the beginning when we heard that guest on PBS talking about the mental detrimental effect that these conditions have on these children? Do you think that they're breeding any folks that will be coming out in favor of this country, that they keep talking about how they want you to do illegal, stop the illegal immigration, start doing it the legal way, which many of them are, as we keep seeing? The over 70% of folks that they have been holding haven't committed any crimes. We keep seeing that, and every time that fact is given to someone, they just ignore it. But they took this 5-year-old kid, Liam Ramos, and as you see this picture here of them leading him into this car, who we can barely get into because of how small he is, as these guys snatch on his backpack and then use him as bait for other folks. They're savage animals. So we can use the same terminology that this president used during the campaign when he's talking about Haitians and when he's talking about other minorities and anyone that immigrates to this country as being animals. But he's got his animals in the streets treating little children like this kid the way they do, to go and then use him afterwards for more of your illegal activities. When is someone going to start asking these folks these questions? Which I know they've asked them other questions about the violence and the attacks and the terrorism that they've been committing against Americans. And then after asking them that, not allowing them to leave by just saying, well, if people wouldn't be protesting, we wouldn't have to be abusing children and hanging out at schools and then taking their parents away before then we commit them to a detention center where we torture them personally ourselves. It's even worse. than I really imagined when it comes to them circling these schools. They started it after, and probably started beforehand, but we first started seeing it after they killed Renee Good and then hung out at that high school to attack some teenagers. They're kind of hanging out everywhere for this purpose.
Toward the end of the school day in St. Louis Park, Minnesota.
4 or 5 cars full of ICE agents because it was right during dismissal.
Parents say they witnessed a law enforcement operation right across the street from Aquila Elementary School. The school district confirming they adjusted pickup procedures due to ICE activity in the surrounding area apartments.
They need to leave. They just need to leave.
Local lawmakers and families gathered to voice their opposition.
I continue to think that what's been happening in our communities is becoming worse and worse day by day.
Before the sun came up in Crystal.
Here's ICE detaining somebody.
This grandmother concerned about her grandchild's bus stop.
1 block down from where these kids are standing.
The Robbinsdale School District sending a message to families saying ICE agents detained a parent at a bus stop. DHS officials have not responded to requests for information on either of these operations.
When you got DHS and the representation that they like to talk so much, refusing to speak to any news outlets about the facts that we're seeing about their torturous behavior towards children, it's a pretty obvious admission that they don't want to be exposed any further to this. They love to talk. Kristi Noem, Donald Trump love to put their faces in front of cameras and talk about how badass they are with their filmographies and putting like rock music behind their abductions of people. But when someone asks them, yo, what are you guys going to do about the fact that we've got you guys hanging out at folks' schools and swooping up children? As a matter of fact, I just see someone posting they live in Minnesota and there's apparently an Amber Alert out for a 7-year-old that was abducted getting off the bus. Again, that's, you know, it's just a moment that I saw just here in the chat about it. But it's not beyond belief, even if for some reason, who knows who's posting these things, it's not beyond belief that they would do it because we've seen them do it. So as they're hanging out here and they know that the public support is waning for this, for the few people who believed in these assholes in the first place, while it's waning, they got to ramp up their tactics because they know it could come to an end once people have finally had enough. So this is now what they're doing. Immigration officers are asserting sweeping power to now forcibly enter people's homes without a judge's warrant. That's according to an internal Immigration and Customs Enforcement memo straight from ICE. So if they deny this, it's coming from them. This makes a sharp reversal of long-standing guidance meant to respect constitutional limits on government searches. Who gives a damn about the Constitution? So the memo authorizes ICE officers to use force to enter a residence based solely on a more narrow administrative warrant to arrest someone with a final order of removal, a move that advocates say collides with Fourth Amendment protections and upends years of advice given to immigrant communities. Not to mention the fact that whenever they happen to step into someone's wrong house or purposely step into someone's wrong house, break in the door of someone's house and then say they're taking everyone there because they didn't comply with, you know, the Gestapo running in and attacking them. This is their next approach. More on this memo. It's not been widely shared within the agency. That's according to that whistleblower. But its contents have been used to train new ICE officers who are being deployed into cities and towns to implement the president's immigration crackdown. New ICE hires and those still in training are being told to follow the memo's guidance instead of written training materials that actually contradict this new memo. We've hearing a lot of stories about how these ICE agents, the new ones, you know, the Proud Boys and the Klansmen that are in the streets now with masks on their faces, the new ones get like a very limited amount of training, but the training apparently is chocked with contradictory memos that go against their normal guidelines for how they break into people's homes and do whatever the hell they want. It's almost like it's purposeful that they're going and breaking more constitutional rules, breaking more laws, and doing anything they want for the sole purpose of terrorizing certain people. This is fascist United States of America. This is them carrying out one of those orders illegally without a judge's order.
What warrant? Wait. Nobody in here but my babies. Sugar, stay your room and shut the door. Sis, I'm not even touching nobody. Get your hands off of me. No. Bring him back. Bring him back.
They call that law and order. They call that carrying out the deportation plan. I mean, it is. The deportation plan was to destroy communities, put rifts in the middle of people's areas, and then send people off and then attack American citizens all at the same time and calling them all terrorists while they do it. Maybe you guys had seen that scene as they took a battering ram to that woman's house to then go in and snatch the man that was in there out. So once they get these folks in these detention centers and they deprive them of any kind of necessary medical supplies or equipment or remedies and treatments that they would normally have, and also feed them horrible, molded over and expired food, as well as not providing any clean water or places or facilities to even stay and sleep, including children. After they do all that, they stick their fingers in their nose and flip it at us one more time. Because had you heard about this? Since we're talking about murder and death, a Cuban immigrant's death in an El Paso detention center this month was ruled a homicide, according to an autopsy report released Wednesday by the county medical examiner's office. That detainee, Geraldo Lunas Campos, was 55 years old. He became unresponsive when he was physically restrained by law enforcement on January 3rd at the ICE facility called Camp East, Montana. Emergency medical workers tried to resuscitate him, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. We've been hearing about this. I believe it was over 30 people that were murdered by ICE agents in detention facilities. But, since they're shielding everything from everyone, they figure no one's going to give a damn because, who are they? Just some immigrants, right? The autopsy listed the cause of death as asphyxia due to neck and torso compression. Keep that in mind as we go through more of this. The report also described injuries Mr. Lunas Campos had sustained to his head and neck, including burst blood vessels on the front and side of the neck, as well as on his eyelids. The determination by the medical examiner's office does not necessarily indicate criminal culpability. It's a classification of how a person died, not a determination of guilt. So a homicide at the hands of detention facility people who were controlling it and who had been seen to have been beating this guy to death, it's not necessarily admission of guilt. It's just more like how it happened. Well, let's go ahead and take it to that next point of, guilt and maybe prison time, stuff like that, like we say we do in this country. It gets worse. Mr. Lunas Campos's death has brought renewed scrutiny to the detention center this month after the Washington Post reported that episode this week. This is what was going on. His family asserted that he was killed by the facility's guards, citing a witness who said he saw guards choking him to death. The family is preparing a wrongful death lawsuit as well. Here's a quote. He was being abused and beaten and choked to death. That's what Jeanette Pagan Lopez said. On Wednesday, Miss Pagan Lopez said she had not seen the autopsy report yet. And as we now see it, the autopsy report says that he was effing murdered. What are we going to do about it? Because it's going to have to be in response to what DHS and the federal officials are doing about it. This is what they're doing about this latest murder. These officials have offered a different account of how Mr. Lunas Campos died. In a January 9th news release, they said he died on January 3rd after experiencing medical distress. But after the Washington Post published that article about the homicide that they committed, they described it as a suicide. So their story changed. Weird how that works. An official story from folks who were there and are responsible for this guy's life. In an emailed statement on Wednesday, a DHS official again said that Mr. Lunas Campos had tried to take his own life, saying that he had, quote, violently resisted the security staff who tried to save him, and that emergency workers had made attempts to resuscitate him. The official did not respond to questions about the autopsy report. I wonder why that official didn't respond to these questions about the contradictory autopsy report versus their ever-changing story from he killed himself. He just died of just general medical issues. Then it went on to a suicide, except we've got all this information about how they, killed him. Here's what they're doing. Listen, this is the worst part. Last one. On Tuesday, his family petitioned a federal judge to stop the deportation of 2 individuals who they say witnessed the death or the movements or the moment that led up to it. The family said in the petition that a fellow detainee had seen guards choke him to death and that another detainee had seen him struggle with the guards before he died. Both of those detainees have been given deportation notices all of a sudden. And the children of Mr. Lunas Campos asked the court to stop those deportations so that those witnesses could testify in the family's wrongful death suit. Mobster shit. Straight up. Just mobster behavior. You kill this guy, and any witness that see it have to then get deported, or who knows whatever else they may do to them. They're murderers. They do this without even thinking about it. So if they kill this guy and they want to cover it up, of course they're going to try and send off these other 2 folks out of the country as soon as possible to avoid any more accountability. So you tell me, how much respect are American people supposed to have for these murderers, blatant outright murderers who keep changing their story whenever the truth keeps telling them that, you're lying? It happens over and over again. We keep seeing proof, sometimes video proof, and this time an autopsy proof that they're lying about their treatment of other human beings. Yet, this is what the Department of Homeland Security had the gall to post. Think about all that murder we were just talking about. Today, Border Patrol agents who were in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area as part of a targeted enforcement operation were repeatedly harassed and blocked by hostile crowds while simply trying to take bathroom breaks. This is from the Department of Homeland Security. At each gas station where the agents stopped to use the restroom, groups of agitators appeared, yelled at them, stalked them, and even tried to prevent law enforcement vehicles from leaving, creating unsafe conditions. At one stop, individuals in the crowd threw food at the agents. At their final gas station stop, someone spit on an agent. When an agent moved to detain the person who spit on him, the crowd tackled and attacked the agents while surrounding them. So they talked about how they used control measures to disperse that hostile crowd. There's stories of them murdering someone in detention centers. There's stories of them hanging out at schools and swooping up 7 5-year-old kids and using them as bait. There's stories of them also refusing any kind of medical treatment or care to these folks. And this organization is going to post this looking for some kind of sympathy for their agents who are murdering people, being spit on, food being thrown at them, and them being harassed as they then go and try and kidnap more people. It's almost like if you see a criminal roving through your neighborhood looking to kidnap children, that you should probably do something about it. But according to the Department of Homeland Security, just sit back and take it. Just be occupied, be terrorized, and eventually be murdered. And stop giving us all this grief. I really wanted to go through the details of what it is that they're doing and how blatant it is and how clearly they're telling everyone they don't give a damn. They don't care. If you haven't liked this stream yet, stroll over there and help me out here, you guys. Hit that like. Go ahead, subscribe. Go ahead and share it. This story will be up a little bit later. I might break it down in a couple different parts just to make sure everyone understands exactly how detrimental this organization, this terror group, is in this country. And it's probably even worse than that. This is what we're getting to see and hear. How many other people have died and have been disappeared and we never knew what happened to them? So let's move on. You guys ready for a fight? Let's jump into this fight. Maybe you guys saw it. If you guys aren't familiar with who Representative Justin Jones is, he's a state representative in Tennessee. One of the couple Justins. There's a couple young minority men who are shaking things up in the Tennessee Congress. And he's found his way on Sean Hannity's show, because I think Sean Hannity thought he was going to get one of those interviews where he's like, I'm going to really show these guys, and my audience is going to love how I'm yelling at them. Well, they both kind of yelled, and it got off to a really bad start.
Justin, thank you for being here. Appreciate your time. Now I got a question. On the screen, I'm going to scroll the victims. You live in Tennessee. You're a state rep in Tennessee, correct?
Correct, Sean, and I'm glad you don't even have to go through theatrics of scrolling a list. I'm glad you brought up a list because if you want to, hold on, Sean.
If you want to have me as a guest on your show, invite me. No, I'm scrolling the names not for your benefit, but for the benefit of our listeners, so that they can know the victims of crime in your state.
And I'm glad you're bringing up a list.
So I want to ask you a question about it.
I'm glad you're bringing up a list, because if you want to go after rapists and criminals, you would stop hanging out with perverts in the White House and pedophiles in the White House, Sean.
Justin, you're not going to get the filibuster. I have a question.
On here.
I have a question. I'm scrolling the names of victims of violent crime. By the way, homicide, rape, sexual assault of
are you going through Trump charges, or
and sodomy,
are you going through Trump charges
and drugs? So my question to you is simple.
Or my question, people in the White House, or what are we talking about?
My question is, if you'll pay attention long enough to listen, my question is simple. Can you name any of the victims of violent crime by illegals in your state? And have you ever called any of them?
To your viewers,
answer the question.
You to be afraid. He wants you to be fearful of your immigrant neighbors, because he wants to protect the
Can you name one victim of violent crime in your state?
He hangs out with pedophiles and criminals in Mar-a-Lago. He does not care about going after rapists. He cares about keeping you fearful, to control you, because he wants to distract you from the real enemy, which are the corporate CEOs who are screwing you over.
Okay.
He does not care.
Did you get you got your little talking point out? You feel good about yourself? This is not MSDNC.
I'm not sure what Sean Hannity was looking for there, or if he thought he was winning that argument. Because when you list a bunch of charges of child rape, killing folks, corruption, it's a pretty easy connection to make. The guy that you carry water for, the guy whose ass you kiss every night on your show, that guy is the one who's committed all those crimes. And I'm glad Justin Jones pointed that out there. This is the list of Donnie's charges, right? It sounded exactly like what it is we've been hearing, and all the things that they've continued to cover up. But somehow he thought his whole point here, Sean Hannity, his whole point here was say, I need you to list the names of people who have been harmed by illegals in your state. Has he named any of these folks that have been killed by ICE agents? Has he named the guy that we just talked about? Has he mentioned any of that as he's talking about someone to name someone? His name is Geraldo Lunas Campos. I'm sorry, it was Geraldo Lunas Campos, because you guys are pushing and holding on to and promoting this madness from this White House. They fought longer. I was questioning whether or not I should give the back end of the fight, but since Justin landed one punch there with the whole thing about Donald Trump and his charges, I was like, maybe he's got more. Maybe he's got another overhand right coming for Sean Hannity.
I'm asking you again. Pay close attention.
Agents.
You're comparing the KKK. What do you know about the KKK? Do you know a lot about the Gestapo? Do you know what the KKK
They ran my grandparents out of Tennessee. They ran my grandparents out of Tennessee.
At least you know some
my dad was a U.S. Marine.
They were murderers. They hung people. They assassinated people. Evil racist. And Gestapo. They led people to their death. And you're comparing law enforcement that are arresting those criminals,
shooting mothers in the face,
to those people.
Shooting mothers in the face. Shooting mothers in the face. Bringing grandfathers out in the snow with boxers on.
But that's not ICE. But that's not ICE.
Now I have a question. Mothers and babies in
my
cars.
question
That's what
remains.
ICE is doing.
Can you name a single victim of crime in your state by illegal immigrants? Yes or no?
I can name the people who are being criminalized by this administration and mass agents who are kidnapping people in our community.
Can you name your state representative?
You want to go through a list?
You can't name one victim of crime. When you compare our ICE agents that are taking all those criminal, illegal immigrants off your street, although you can't name a single person because you're not in touch with your constituents and you're too lazy to find out who they are, you're putting their lives in jeopardy. You are putting your reckless rhetoric is putting their lives in jeopardy. And you are making your city and your state less safe and secure.
You should be ashamed of yourself, and I'm going to pray for you that you lay down this burden and these lies, Sean. Shame on you, my brother.
disgrace.
God
I
help my brother
appreciate the
Sean.
prayers.
Help
Pray
take
for the
scales off
victims
God.
in your
Let him see
state.
truth.
Pray for the
Let him see
victims of
justice.
murder.
Help him
Pray
to
for
do
the
better.
victims
Help
of
him to
rape.
stop hanging out with
Pray for
perverts
the
in
victims of
Mar-a-Lago.
violent
Tell him to
crime.
let Trump
Pray
put
for the
down
victims of drug
garden
abuse.
pen and
Pray
pick
for the
up a mirror
children
he
that
wants
have
to
been
go after criminals.
sodomized and
We're
raped.
praying
Pray for
that this is a
them.
nation
Pray for
as a
them in your
multiracial
state, and you
democracy,
can't
and
name
truth
one of
will
them.
come.
And you
Truth
don't
will
give
come
a
out.
you
The
don't
civil
give a
rights movement is
damn
continuing
about
today,
them.
and
You
we will
don't
take
care
on the
one
new
bit.
American plan because the people
We're
of
done.
America deserve better
Coming
than
up,
lies.
Virginia.
You gotta, the music was playing. Bruce is like, we gotta get out of this. This didn't go anywhere. This is just a couple guys yelling at each other. Good. Blow up the whole segment. Make it look really messy. Make sure nothing is clear from this propaganda that Sean Hannity wants to keep peddling at folks. You know, everything is based in that fear. So as soon as Justin Jones put that picture up of the folks in masks that are roving through people's streets, I feel like there'd be something to go off in people's heads that want to ignore what it is that we're seeing and experiencing and go, wait a second, I'm seeing Sean Hannity on the left side of the screen defending these guys running through here with masks on, murdering people, as he tries to talk about how the Klan, Hannity said this, the Klan, do you know about the Klan? They assassinated people. They hung them. The Gestapo, they're not like the Gestapo led people to their deaths. So if you want to ignore the people that have been led to their deaths, if you want to ignore the people that these ICE agents have literally murdered in the streets, we saw it on video. It's crazy that they keep talking as if what we're experiencing isn't what we're all experiencing. So he has to bring up how Renee Good was shot in the face multiple times. Like, this is, but it's one of those things. And I could tell how, amped Representative Jones was before he even really got started, because he knew the fight that he was going to have to get into just then. He knew that there was going to be these ridiculous questions. Can Sean Hannity name all the victims that he's asking Justin Jones to name, which is his only question that entire time, which was longer than what I showed you guys? Can he name them? No, he doesn't give a damn about those victims. He cares about trying to scare his audience into thinking all of these crimes, these violations of law and the Constitution that this president is carrying out, all those things are wonderful because those people aren't MAGA. It's kind of literally what Donald Trump likes to say. But there was something that I enjoyed that Justin Jones mentioned in that whole tirade, yelling back and forth. He asked about Donald Trump and his pedophilia, his cover-up of other pedophiles as well too, and it perpetuates right through the entire party. Congressman Yasmin Ansari was speaking from the Congress committee here, and she's bringing up, and I'm glad they're finally doing it more. Not finally, they're doing it consistently. More holding the feet to the fire from people in this Republican MAGA party for how they're just covering for everything Donald Trump is trying to do when it comes to these Epstein files. Here she is cornering James Comer.
This is all part of an intentional cover-up, which leads to the unavoidable question, who is the president protecting when we know he only cares about one person? Guys, I'll end with my question to the chairman. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, has violated the subpoena issued by this committee. We should be holding her in contempt to remain fair and to remain transparent. And so I ask that you do that if you really, truly want to be fair and care about the justice for the victims here.
May I respond? We have been very clear. We expect those documents. She has complied. She's turned over documents. In the
1%
beginning,
not
you all complained and said the first document dump didn't have enough redactions, and the second document dump had too many redactions. So they're trying to get this, and I believe
Mr. Chairman,
that we will get those documents very soon. I have been assured we're going to get those documents very soon.
I hear you, but with all due respect, given everything that she herself stated in February of last year, her own statements in front of the entirety of the American public saying, we have the documents. They are ready to go. The subpoena from this committee was issued in July.
And nobody
And
on
they
our
never
side,
got to work.
nobody on our side is defending Pam Bondi. I
So
can
then
assure
she should
you.
be held in contempt. If we are
She
going to
is
hold
complying with,
President
they have
Clinton in
turned
contempt, then we have to
documents
hold
over.
her.
They have turned documents over, and every time they do,
1%
you all
of the
complain
documents
about too
know
many
that
redactions, not enough redactions. So,
that is unacceptable. It has been 6 months.
all right, your
and there's
time,
been
your time's
nothing
expired,
produced.
and we won't.
That's how James Comer operates. When cornered, he just says that what they're doing isn't what they're doing. Do you really think it makes any sense for James Comer? First off, he said nobody's defending Pam Bondi. You know, as that was sandwiched in between those instances of him defending Pam Bondi, saying she's releasing everything that she can. She's doing it all. Is that not defending her, or is that defending her? It's weird how reality doesn't match up with the things that they tell us we're supposed to believe. But again, these redactions, he says the reasons why that they didn't go and release more files. That Democrats were complaining about redactions. When's the last time you heard any MAGA Republican give a half of a damn about anything a Democrat says after they're supposed to be doing what they're supposed to be doing based on the law that was passed? Now his excuse is that too many Democrats complained about redactions, which they didn't. And even if they did, why are you guys suddenly listening to Democrats? You ain't listening to anything else they've said. The bottom line is that, you know, he's covering for Pam Bondi. But this came across my timeline too. It's weird how this happened. While James Comer is saying he's not covering for Pam Bondi, there's this, you know, white-haired guy who has decided to stop covering for Pam Bondi.
We have yet to receive anything from our FOIA on the Jeffrey Epstein case. Let me first make a case. I want to make two sides of this case. And the one I believe is that Pam Bondi needs to be replaced right now. First, let me make a case for accountability and action and why patience at some point can become complicity. A republic doesn't die only from chaos. It dies from tolerance of the intolerable. There comes a point when process stops being prudence and becomes protection. And that's what I'm concerned about, that we are in this place to where protection is happening. And history is merciless on this question of where this line is. The Roman Senate, you know, they didn't fall just because they lacked laws. They weren't enforcing it. The laws were enforced selectively. Politicians, the Senate, everybody delayed. And so there was no justice, and the people noticed that. And that's when people stop believing in the republic. When that happens, the public starts to say, you know what, I'm going to draw a conclusion here. And it's not irrational to do it. It's not hysterical to do it. But people see this pattern and go, the whole system is rigged. And that's the end of a republic. And that's why Pam Bondi needs to answer or be replaced. We must have the information that the American people can trust.
Isn't it weird how people like Glenn Beck, I'm not sure what he's seen or finally discovered to give him this kind of, you know, righteous anger now towards Pam Bondi, who they've been covering for this whole time, which, by the way, he's focused and centering all of his ire towards Pam Bondi and not the president, that she literally does everything he tells her to do. It's weird how they keep absolving Donald Trump of any connection to all the people that they say are giving him bad advice. She's just a rogue attorney general who's doing everything. And Donald Trump's like, can you please release the files? I wish you'd get them all out there. But at least Glenn Beck is done with Pam Bondi. But really fast on him talking about people losing their trust in institutions, losing their trust in the republic because of this lack of justice. Again, it gives this, again, when even folks like this finally say the right thing about this small piece of our, you know, our life here, it's an admission that they've always ignored all the many other people, American citizens in this country, that have complained about how the institutions don't do anything as far as justice, how they lost faith in our republic because of the systematic way that it blocks certain people from opportunities, the way it gets people off the streets, the way it arrests certain folks for things that, you know, they didn't do, and how the system continues to destroy those folks' lives. But those people don't matter enough to Glenn Beck. Now we've gotten to that point. So I guess I'll take it. I mean, cool. I mean, as long as somebody finally figures these things out. But he wasn't even done with old Pam Bondi. He continued on about specifically now, because of what she's been doing, why she's got to go. Maybe he'll make some more sense.
So let me just tell you, these are the things that just drive me out of my mind that Pam Bondi needs to answer for and be replaced for. The Epstein case. That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen anybody handle anything. No, I take that back. Joe Biden, he handled his entire administration the way Pam Bondi has handled the Epstein case. It is honestly like she's like, I got all the information on my desk right here, and I got that. What am I doing here? I mean, it was almost that bad. I've got all the information, and you're going to see it tomorrow. It's set right here on my desk, and then nothing. Why did you say that, Pam? You have to tell the American people because you were bluffing, because you hadn't done your homework, because you were looking for press that night. Why would you say that and then have nothing? And then the next day say, well, I don't have it because the FBI in New York, they won't release it. They're holding the documents. And then not send FBI to the FBI office and arrest those people that would not turn over the records that you said they were holding. Why didn't that happen? I personally think it was just another lie or gaffe from you. You were incompetent and not ready to deal with it, and you opened your mouth. That's what I think happened. And that's the kindest I can get.
How are both a lie and a gaffe potentially interchangeable in this situation? If she's lying about the information that she's seen, that she's got, that she's covering up, or is she spitting out gaffes about relaying that information, and it's taken a full year now, and they haven't done anything except aggressively, very actionably, make sure they cover this up. From the redactions, to the excuses, to the anger, to the pushback, to completely violating the Constitution and this law that was passed and signed by this president. And he's still wondering, what is it you're hiding? Why are you hiding it, Pam? And mention the president for a second. Isn't it weird? This seems more like a bit of an ass covering session rather than looking to get some kind of answers as to why this administration continues to do the things that it does. It's what they do. They're covering for this guy who has said openly and directly, stop talking about Epstein. This guy's been dead for years. Why are we still talking about Epstein? I thought we were done with Epstein. This is a complete hoax. It's the Democrats. Maybe someone should ask these folks who are coming to these slow revelations about the pedophile behavior from this White House and the way they're covering up for so many other powerful and influential people. Maybe they should start centering in on the people that are being protected. And also, of course, yeah, I agree, Glenn. Let's get rid of Pam Bondi, and on the way out, let's expose everything else that's happening. God, it's crazy. It's the reason why I'm not big on accepting nuggets of truth from these types of folks is because they're still not being honest. They know the problem. And they're too afraid to fully say it. Okay, let's move on. I got one more story to get to. In case you guys didn't get a chance to do that yet, go ahead, like this stream. I appreciate you. And I'll appreciate you guys for being here. Let folks know we do this every day at noon Eastern. Tomorrow's Friday. Well, a little bit of a short week since I wasn't here on Monday. We'll get things prepared for then. But just to wrap up this Thursday, I was talking about the World Economic Forum yesterday, where Donald Trump was embarrassing himself in front of world leaders and anyone else that was probably trying not to listen. But at the back end of yesterday, this was after I was done with the stream, there's apparently a deal that was put in place. We'll get to that in a second. But as you guys saw from the forum and folks that were talking, and Donald Trump's push for Greenland that apparently finally went away, Laura Ingraham and State TV decided to, tell us that it's everyone else's fault but his.
Europe's pointless temper tantrum. That's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, once again, Donald Trump and his team remind the world that the United States is the only power capable of holding the West together by protecting Europe from its own stupidity and weakness. And what have we ever really asked of NATO? For most of its history, the relationship has been lopsided. Now, that was great for the other NATO countries, but it was a lousy deal for the United States, our taxpayers. Other presidents, of course, they just let the imbalance slide, but not Trump.
I just say this. NATO has treated the United States of America very unfairly. We never asked for anything. We never got anything. We actually took care of the needs of NATO for years and years, which I felt was always unfair. So I got NATO to pay because they're rich countries.
Yeah, all told, their GDP is about on par with the United States. So why couldn't they have contributed more for their own defense, up until now, at least? So, and you bet Europe is still mad about having to spend more of that money on defense. They love the old deal, but again, because of the tough love of our president, old Europe is being forced to look in the mirror. The Euro elites are so snooty, they have to put on a show of defiance to save face.
How does any of that make any sense? Snooty, tantrum-throwing European nations are just doing all this because they're upset that Donald Trump kept declaring he would invade Greenland militarily, kill people, and then own it. Yeah, you're complaining for saying, no? Isn't that weird? So you have to actually listen to what is it they're saying, and then actually have a full, complete picture of what it is they're saying without all that emotion that they're tossing at folks. It's us against them stupidity. But she also has to adopt his insults. Look, the stupidity of Europe. What has NATO ever done for us? She knows the answer to that question. She knows, bro. Donald Trump may not know because he's absolutely stupid, but she knows the answer to that question, and therefore she has to adopt his stupidity, his ignorance, and his hate in order to, I guess, keep her paycheck going, to not be lambasted by him on social media somehow. And instead, she has to act like she has no idea the time that NATO, their intervention, and the use of other countries' troops were used in our favor. He may not know that, but she knows that. But since she's talking about tantrums and all that stuff, this was fun. I saw this floating around the internet. This is a little bit more accurate picture of what it is that the tantrums that's created. This is a glimpse into Donald Trump's brain.
No. No.
Trump, you can't have Greenland. And instead of whining and crying loudly over it now, he's going to act like it was his plan the whole time. And really, in his brain, what's happening is he's freaking out. As Laura Ingraham called it, he's having a tantrum. Except he went in front of the World Economic Forum. I played a little bit of this yesterday, and I didn't know the extent to which he went on this crazy tirade, or what he thinks is this gasp of fresh air that people are taking, because he, even though his state TV said that everyone else is throwing a tantrum, that he's now releasing his hold on claiming he's going to go and murder people in Greenland.
I got NATO to pay 5%, and now they were paying, and now they are paying. So something nobody said was possible. They said we will never go up higher than 2%, but they went to 5%, and now they're paying the 5. They didn't pay the 2, and now they're paying the 5. And they're stronger for it, and they have an excellent, by the way, Secretary General who's possibly in the room. Mark, are you here? Yes, he's here. Hello, Mark. We never asked for anything, and we never got anything. We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force, where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force. All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland, where we already had it as a trustee, but respectfully returned it back to Denmark not long ago after we defeated the Germans, the Japanese, the Italians, and others in World War II. We gave it back to them. We were a powerful force then, but we are a much more powerful force now, after I rebuilt the military in my first term and continue to do so today.
You notice that same line? We never ask for anything. Isn't it was weird how she adopted that line? And it's the exact same thing that you're supposed to repeat what he says, even though it doesn't make absolutely any sense. So he's pulled back, as you guys saw from that point yesterday, and everyone, apparently he wants everyone to have, this gasp of relief. Oh God, I'm so glad. He's not going to go and start murdering folks, even though everyone around him was saying this would be the worst thing you could do. And matter of fact, even a couple of, of Republican senators grew like, a millimeter of a backbone and said, this might be the end of your presidency if you do this. So he had to back off. And in usual fashion, if you follow anything he was doing with these tariffs that have all been, not all been, but many, he just kind of let go by the wayside, reversed, said that he got deals done when deals were not done, the usual BS lines of propaganda from him. So in response to him backing off like he's doing everything else and saying, okay, my bad, I was just bluffing, this is what he's given as his excuse, what's come from that bluff. Based on very productive meeting here that I've had with the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, we have formed a framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland, and in fact, the entire Arctic region. Listen to that part again. We formed a framework of a future deal with Greenland. What do you mean a framework of a future deal? When in the future? 2 weeks? And what's that framework entail? We'll see. This solution, if consummated, will be a great one for the United States of America and all NATO nations. Based upon this understanding, I will not be imposing the tariffs that are scheduled to go into effect on February 1st. Pause again. So capitulation number 1, I'm not going to go and attack Greenland. Capitulation number 2, those 8 countries that I said I'm going to slap tariffs on because, they're opposing me on Greenland, I'm no longer doing that either. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. This it's the fold. He's folded twice now. He's like a t-shirt. More. As additional discussions are being held concerning the Golden Dome as it pertains to Greenland. Further information will be made available as discussions progress. Vice President Vance, Secretary of State Rubio, Special Envoy Witkoff, and various others, as needed, will be responsible for these negotiations. A pile of idiots that are supposed to be doing negotiations. Maybe that's how they got themselves in this position in the first place, because Vance, Rubio, and Witkoff, along with Donald Trump's dumbass, keep threatening folks, and then when that doesn't work, because they figure, hey, we threatened cities in our own country and we've attacked them and nobody's done anything about that yet, maybe we can go and do that internationally. We did it in Venezuela, nobody did anything about that, so let's go do it in Greenland. But they finally hit a brick wall, and he's got to act like he's done some kind of different thing. Don't forget, some of these world leaders, European leaders, talked about, prime ministers of Denmark have talked about specifically, what do you want from Greenland? You've got access to Greenland. I don't know if many people knew this. He's got access to Greenland. He's got access. We got military bases, all these things that they have access points that he says he needs to enrich or progress further in order to make sure China and Russia don't go taking it over. Maggie Haberman was asked about those previous agreements and this future unknown framework of an agreement. It's probably going to come out at the same time as healthcare plans going to come out. This is what she had to say about it.
Maggie, is it clear to you what, if anything, President Trump is getting from Denmark and Greenland that the U.S. doesn't already have de facto control over?
No, and look, Anderson, we don't know the answers to these questions. As Caitlin was saying earlier, there's a lot left unsaid. The president didn't answer this. His aides are pointing to his social media post about it, which we've seen over and over in this administration. But yes, as of now, based on what they're talking about, it looks as if they're talking about something that is already in existence. And in fact, the U.S. used to have a greater military presence in Greenland. It got scaled back after the Cold War, but it's the way he is going about it, which is saying things, insulting NATO allies, saying, I can't imagine they would come to our defense. The Article 5 was invoked once, and it was after 9/11. And someone who is from New York, it's surprising that they don't recall that. And so he is speaking about this completely in transactional terms. And you can see that this is not over. I understand that Mark Rutte is trying to calm things down, but European leaders are still very alarmed, and leaders in Denmark have been very alarmed for weeks and weeks now before this really became much more public.
So even worse, despite the fact that this is no change in the kinds of access that this country had with Greenland before, and he's going to write it off as some kind of a victory. Not only that, but it's irreparable damage. Why would any of these countries start trusting anything this guy has to say anymore? And the next time he threatens another country, should they take him seriously? Should they prepare for it? Or should they sit there vulnerable after he keeps saying he's going to, invade France? I just wonder how much he thinks he can just dust his hands of this whole thing now that he claimed victory over doing absolutely nothing except, upend normal allies and negotiations and friendships with other countries. Outside of that, he thinks this is just all fun and games. Oh, I bluff all the time. I suck at this. Every time someone calls my bluff, I fold and I back down from it. But everyone's supposed to still respect me. We're the hottest nation on earth. Everyone respects us now. None of that is true. As a matter of fact, outgoing Republican Representative Don Bacon, who's too afraid to actually, fight this guy further than just talking every once in a while before he runs his ass off. He actually addressed that last point about the damage that's been done with these partnerships, these alliances in Europe.
The president today took military action in Greenland off the table. Do you feel good about that?
Well, that's right.
Do you take him at his word?
It was right to do so, but he should never threaten it to begin with, and nor his team. It's an ally.
Do you take him at his word?
Well, I think you would say that if you didn't mean it, but the fact is, we don't treat our allies this way, and there's been grave damage done with our European allies, and I know this firsthand. I've had elected leaders visit me in my office today. I had socialized with them last night, and I can just tell we've undermined the connections that really have helped our country be more secure.
Would you say that damage is permanent, or is there a way to reassure?
Oh, I think the buildup is going to take probably the next president to spend a lot of this time trying to fix this. Because right now, our allies in Europe they don't think we're dependable, and that's a shame.
The president today took military action.
It's easy to, kind of dust their hands and say, yo, we're in this bad situation. Look what he's done. How much has this party done to support him in these wild interactions, these wild claims, these wild threats? But now that, he's folded on it, we have a lot of work to do. Maybe the next president will be able to do something about the damage that Donald Trump has done. I just wish reporters would listen to what these guys say and maybe be quicker on their feet to say, oh, so do you think another Republican president who's helped facilitate this guy get to this point, do you think he'll have any interest in undoing the issues and the problems that this guy has created? I just asked the question, which president does Don Bacon think is going to have the ability or desire to do anything to undo what Donald Trump has been doing? I wonder, or he's going to go back to endorsing more folks that will do more of the same kind of stuff. God, like none of these guys, they try and act like they're now on the right side of things, are actually fully on the right sides of things. They just kind of say things. What are they going to do about it? Maybe he should be part of writing up some articles of impeachment before he runs his ass away. Maybe before you escape Don Bacon, maybe you should do something about it. That's it. I'm going to do something about this. I got to take off. It's the top of the hour. Look at that timing. Nobody's going to be late for TDR. I want you guys to run over there, hit him with the watch party raid, and tell him, let John know. I got you, bro. No need to worry. I got you, big dog. As usual, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. We got Friday coming up. I might buy some of these teas that's all you guys were talking about. I'm not sure which one to go after now. At some point, I got to find out something else, or I'm going to revert. I mean, now the pressure's on you guys. I'll find some of these teas. I'll figure it out. We'll see if it does any damage to me. We'll catch you guys tomorrow, though. Appreciate you. Love you. We'll see you guys then. See you later, man.